was 6 months pregnant when she walked out the door with a suitcase and didn't even look back. I stood there in the middle of the room, my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter move, and all I could think was, how am I going to do this? It wasn't just the fear of being alone. It was the fear of not being able to cope, of something being missing, of looking her in the face one day and seeing the disappointment. He didn't say he was leaving. He just left. We'd had an argument, but I thought it was one of those arguments all couples have. I didn't realize that by closing that door, he was closing it off to us too. In the following days, I tried calling him, writing to him. Nothing. He blocked me. He blocked me and his daughter, who hadn't even been born yet. I spent the entire night awake, sitting on the floor of the empty room we had started preparing for her. There was a half-assembled crib, folded clothes on the dresser, and a feeling in my chest I had never felt before. The loneliness of knowing that, from then on, whatever happened for both her and me, I would have to face it alone. There was no longer an us. There was only me. I remember placing my hand on my belly and apologizing to him. Apologizing for not being able to make his father stay. Apologizing for being born with no one to share his lap with. Apologizing because I myself didn't know if I would be enough. And there, on that cold floor, with a heavy belly and an even heavier heart, I understood that the life I had planned was over. And that I would have to build a new one from scratch, without a manual, without help, without him. But what I didn't imagine at that moment was that, 3 years later, the most difficult question of my life wouldn't come from a doctor, an overdue bill, or a family dispute. It would come from my own daughter. And I wouldn't have an answer prepared. If you've ever been through this, if you've ever felt that tightness in your chest knowing you'll have to raise a child alone, please like this video. Because single mothers' stories matter and need to be told. And if you're still listening, comment below. Did you get pregnant too? Sometimes we just need to know we're not alone in this. The following days were the hardest of my life. I had a prenatal appointment scheduled for a week later. And every time I thought about it, a feeling of oppression washed over me. Because until then we had gone together. He sat beside me in the waiting room, held my hand when the doctor applied the cold gel to my belly, and smiled when he heard his little heartbeat. Now I was gonna have to go alone. And that's exactly how it was. I sat down in the plastic chair in that room full of couples, pregnant bellies, happy people. Everyone was accompanied, except me. I looked around and saw husbands arranging their wives' suitcases, bringing water, caressing their bellies. And there I was with my suitcase in my lap, alone, trying not to cry. Because if I started crying there in front of everyone, I knew I wouldn't stop. When the doctor called and asked where I was, I lied. I said I'd had an unexpected problem at work. I couldn't tell the truth. I couldn't say out loud that she was gone, because saying it out loud would make it too real. And I still wasn't ready to accept that I was going to go through all of this alone. The appointments, the delivery, the long nights, my whole life. At night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what it would all be like. How was I going to manage? Had no support. My family lived far away, and when I told them what had happened, their reaction was more judgment than a hug. I warned you he wasn't any good. You should have thought about this before. Now you'll have to deal with it. As if I didn't already know. As if I hadn't spent the whole night awake, my hand on my stomach, apologizing to my daughter for not choosing a better father for her. I felt completely invisible. People asked me about the pregnancy, but no one asked how I was really doing. No one wanted to know about the loneliness, the fear, the emptiness I felt every time I looked at the edge of the bed and saw it empty. I smiled, said everything was fine, that I would make it. But inside I was falling apart. And the worst part was knowing that, from then on, every decision, every doubt, every pain I would have to bear alone. I had no one to share it with. It was just me, my belly, and a painful certainty. I would have to be strong for two. One Tuesday morning, I sat down at the kitchen table with all my bills spread out in front of me. Bills, credit card statements, that little notebook where I jotted down my expenses. And for the first time I faced reality. The numbers didn't add up. What I earned wasn't enough for the rent, the bills, baby clothes for my daughter who was on the way, and all the other expenses that were coming up. I've always worked, always been independent. But now, 6 months pregnant, with a heavy belly, a tired body, and a head full of worries, I knew I needed something more. I started looking for work. I sent my resume to every place I could think of. Telemarketing, sales, administration, cleaning assistant. Anything that would accept a pregnant woman and give me an income to survive. But reality hit me hard. Nobody wants to hire a woman who's 6 months pregnant. Nobody says it outright, but you can feel it. They look at my belly, give me fake smiles, say they'll be in touch. And they never do. Because they know that in 3 months I'll be on maternity leave, that I'll need appointments, that I'll be absent if something goes wrong. It felt completely disposable. That's when I started cleaning houses. I got a few odd jobs with the help of a neighbor who knew people. It wasn't what I wanted, it wasn't what I'd studied for, but it paid. And at that point, I couldn't afford to be a choice. I'd clean houses in the morning, come home with a sore back and swollen feet, and spend the afternoon organizing everything for her arrival. I bought a second-hand crib. I received baby clothes from friends who had just had children. I organized a raffle to raise money for a stroller. I wasn't proud of asking for help at that time, because all that mattered was making sure my daughter had the bare necessities when she was born. But every time I asked for something, every time I accepted a donation, I felt a pang in my chest. Because that wasn't what I had dreamed of for her. I wanted to give her everything new, everything perfect, but life had other plans. At night when I was in bed, I would do mental calculations. How much I had, how much I needed, how much I was lacking. And there was always something missing. Always. But there, in the midst of all that exhaustion, I made a decision. I was going to make it, even if I had to work until the very last day of this pregnancy. Because if he wasn't going to be there, I would have to be twice as much. Father and mother. Provider and caregiver. And that was going to hurt, but I had no choice. It was a Thursday, at the end of my 7th month, when my body screamed that it couldn't take it anymore. I was finishing a deep clean, cleaning windows, scrubbing the floor on my knees, and when I went to stand up, everything went dark. My vision blurred, my legs gave way, and I had to grab the wall to keep from falling right there. I sat down on the floor of that unfamiliar kitchen, my stomach heavy, my hands trembling, and my heart racing. I lay there, taking deep breaths, trying not to faint. And the only thought running through my mind was, if I fall now, what will happen to her? If I faint, who will help me? Who will take me to the hospital? There was no one to call, no one who would come running to get me. I was all alone. I sat there for about 15 minutes before I could get up. I grabbed my things, finished the work as best I could, and went home, my legs still weak. That night, lying in bed, I started to cry. I cried from exhaustion, from fear, from anger. I didn't want to go through this. I didn't want to have to choose between working myself to the point of collapse or starving at home. But that was my reality. The anxiety attacks started around that time. I would wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, sweating profusely, and with a tightness in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I would think about everything that could go wrong. What if I can't afford the hospital? What if I don't have enough milk? What if the baby is born with a problem and I don't have the money to care for her? What if I can't cope with it all? During the day, I pretended everything was fine. I smiled, I worked, I did what I had to do. But inside I was falling apart. My body ached, my back couldn't take it anymore. My feet were constantly swollen, and I could barely sleep because my stomach wouldn't let me find a comfortable position. And the worst part, I felt guilty for being tired. Guilty for feeling angry. Guilty for sometimes wishing none of this was happening. But she kept moving inside me. And every kick, every movement, reminded me that I couldn't give up. That I couldn't afford to stop. That, whether I wanted to or not, I needed to hold on a little longer. Just a little longer. Until she came. My daughter was born in the early hours of a Sunday morning. I was alone when my water broke. I called my neighbor, who quickly took me to the hospital, and there, at the maternity ward entrance, she hugged me and told me everything would be all right. But she couldn't come in with me. I knew I had the right to a companion, but I had no one to call. I had no husband, no mother nearby, no one who would drop everything to be with me. I went through the entire labor alone. The nurses would come in, perform the procedure, and leave. I stayed there, lying on that cold bed, holding my hand, breathing the way the doctor had taught me, trying not to scream so as not to disturb anyone. Each contraction was a tearing pain, and I had no one to hold me, no one to tell me I was doing it. When she was born at 4:15 in the morning, I heard her first cry and I broke down. We cried together. She cried from fear, I from relief. They cleaned her, measured her, weighed her, and when they placed her on my chest, skin to skin, everything stopped. The exhaustion, the pain, the loneliness, the fear. Everything disappeared for a few seconds. I looked at that wrinkled, red little face and thought, it was worth it. It was all worth it. She opened her little eyes and looked at me. And I swear in that moment she truly saw me. As if she knew I was the only person in the world who would always be there for her. I took her tiny hand, so small it barely closed around my finger, and felt a strength I didn't know existed. A strength that didn't come from me, but from her. From the fact that she was there, alive, breathing, depending only on me. I spent the 3 days of her hospitalization alone with her in the room. I learned to change her diaper by myself, to bathe her even though I was afraid I'd drop her, to breastfeed her even with her painful cracks, to soothe her cries in the middle of the night without anyone's help. There were times when I wanted to give up, when I thought, I can't do this. But then I'd see her sleeping in my lap, listening to my heartbeat, and I knew that giving up wasn't an option. The day I was discharged, the nurse helped me put her in the baby carrier and said, "You're a warrior." I didn't feel like a warrior. I was just tired. But when I left the hospital with her in my arms, alone, without a bouquet of flowers, without her father taking pictures of us, without anyone waiting for us outside, I understood one thing. We were going to be okay. Just her and me. Just the two of us. When my daughter turned 1 month old, I did something that might seem small, but for me it was huge. I paid the rent on time. For the first time since she was born, I didn't have to ask for a few more days. I didn't have to negotiate with the landlord. I didn't have to feel that tightness in my chest thinking we were going to be evicted. I put the receipt in the drawer and as I closed it, I cried with relief. It might seem silly to celebrate paying a bill. But when you spend months waking up in the middle of the night doing mental calculations, adding up income and expenses, cutting back on everything unnecessary, every bill paid on time becomes a victory. And that was proof that I was making it. That we were going to survive. That same week, I saved up some money and bought a simple cake at the market. I put a candle on it, took a picture of my daughter with it, and we celebrated her first month, just the two of us. There was no party, no family, no decorations. But there was love. And in that moment, I realized we didn't need anything else. I also started to get more organized. I made a spreadsheet on my phone with everything that came in and went out. I wrote down every penny. I discovered that it was possible to save on some things, that there were expenses I could cut back on, that I could save a little each month, even if it was only 20 or 30 reais. It wasn't much, but something was something. And something was better than nothing. I also found a neighbor who agreed to babysit my daughter for a few hours a week in exchange for me cleaning her house. It wasn't ideal, but it gave me time to look for another job and supplement my income. And most importantly, it gave me peace of mind knowing she was in good hands while I was away. Each of these small victories gave me more strength. I would see my daughter sleeping in her second-hand crib, her clothes washed and folded, her diaper clean, her tummy full, and I would think, we're doing this. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't what I had dreamed of, but it was real. And it was ours. Only ours. If you also celebrate every paid bill, every month you manage to end the year with positive numbers, leave a comment below. Because these small victories are the ones that matter most. And if you've followed me this far, subscribe to the channel, because there's still a long way to go in this story. When my daughter turned 6 months old, I stood in front of the mirror and it took me a few seconds to recognize myself. My hair was pulled back in a messy bun. I had deep dark circles under my eyes. My clothes were stained with milk, and my body was one I no longer recognized. And the worst part wasn't my appearance. It was realizing that I had forgotten who I was before all of this. I had simply become the mother. I wasn't myself anymore. I was the woman who changed diapers, bathed, woke up in the middle of the night, worked to pay the bills, and handled everything on her own. But the woman who loved listening to music, reading books, dreaming of things beyond just surviving, that woman was gone. And I missed her. Loneliness affected me differently now. It wasn't just the loneliness of having no one to help me with my daughter. It was the loneliness of having no one to ask how she was. Really. It wasn't about her, whether she was sleeping well, breastfeeding well, or growing. It was about me. About what I was feeling, about who I was ceasing to be. About the emptiness I felt inside despite being with her all the time. One day, a neighbor invited me for coffee. Just coffee, nothing special. And I didn't go. Because I didn't have any nice clothes to wear, because I thought I didn't have time, because I felt guilty about leaving my daughter, even if it was just for an hour. But the truth is, I'd forgotten what it was like to be somewhere without being a mother. What it was like to talk about something other than diapers and baby food. What it was like to laugh at something silly without pressure, without worries. I began to realize that I was erasing myself. That I had put all my desires, all my dreams, my entire identity into a box and locked it. Because being a mother demanded it, right? It demanded sacrifice. But no one warned me that the sacrifice included forgetting that I was still a woman. A woman with desires, who felt emotional loneliness, who sometimes just wanted a hug without needing to be strong. That night, after putting her to bed, I sat on the living room floor and cried. I didn't cry from exhaustion or fear. I cried because I missed her. And because I didn't know if I could ever be who I was again. Or if that woman had died the day he walked out the door and left me alone with everything. One afternoon, while putting away her clothes, something clicked inside me. I looked at those tiny clothes, that simple but clean room, and I thought, how long? How long would she survive? How long would we live month to month, just paying bills, simply surviving? I wanted more. Not for myself, but for her. And to get more, I needed to change something. I started thinking about the future. Seriously. It wasn't just about surviving the day anymore. It was about building something. My daughter was growing up. Soon she'd need school supplies, new clothes every year, medicine if she got sick. And I couldn't rely solely on cleaning jobs, on odd jobs, on jobs that could end at any moment. I needed something more stable, something that would give me more income, more security. That's when I decided to go back to school. I had dropped out of high school when I got pregnant, and I always wanted to finish, to take a course, to have a real profession. But now it wasn't just a wish. It was a necessity. I researched continuing education programs, vocational training courses, what I could do to improve my situation. And I discovered that it was possible to do it all online, at times that suited me. It wasn't easy. I studied in the early hours of the morning, after she had fallen asleep. I read notes on my phone while she played on the rug. I took exams with her on my lap when I had no one else to leave her with. There were days when I cried from exhaustion, when I thought about giving up, when I thought I wouldn't be able to do it. But every time I looked at her, I remembered why I was doing it. I also started organizing myself differently. I stopped just putting out fires. I started planning. I set a goal to finish my studies in a year, take an administrative assistant course, and get a stable job with a formal employment contract. It seemed distant, it seemed impossible, but I wrote it down. And every month I reviewed it, saw what I had accomplished and what I still needed to do. I spoke with the neighbor who looked after my daughter, and we reached a more favorable agreement. She would look after her some afternoons, I would pay a fixed amount, and that gave me time to study and look for a better job. Little by little, things started to fall into place. It wasn't fast, it wasn't a miracle, but it was a step forward. And that step was better than standing still, waiting for life to change on its own. For the first time since he left, I felt hope. Not the hope that he would return, nor the hope that someone would save me, but the hope that I myself could change our story, that I had power over our future, and that, if I kept going, one day we would escape this survival situation and have a real life. My daughter was 1 year and 3 months old when he reappeared. He just appeared. A text message, after more than a year of silence. I need to see you. I need to meet my daughter. As if it were that simple. As if he hadn't abandoned me when I was 6 months pregnant. As if I hadn't vanished, blocked, erased from his life. I stared at that message in disbelief. I read it and reread it about 10 times. My first reaction was anger. Burning anger. Because where was he when I was nearly exhausted? Where was he during the nights she cried and I didn't know what to do anymore? Where was he when I was hungry, making sure she ate? Where was he for every achievement, every struggle, every time I needed someone and only had myself? I didn't respond right away. I spent days turning it over in my mind, talking to myself, thinking about what was best for my daughter. Because in the end it wasn't about me. It was about her. And as much as it pained me to admit it, he was her biological father. And maybe she needed him, maybe she had a right to know him, maybe one day she would ask me why I didn't let her. But a part of me screamed, "Don't let him. Don't let him in now and ruin everything you've built. Don't let him show up when it's easy, when she's older, when you've already been through the worst. Because if he comes and goes again, who's going to pick up the pieces? Me. Always me. I'm the one who'll have to explain to her why her father disappeared again. I'm the one who'll have to dry her tears. I'm the one who'll bear the guilt of letting him in." I replied 3 days later. I said we could talk, but only talk. Before anything related to my daughter. He needed to explain where he'd been all this time. He needed to tell me why now. Why, after all, he'd decided to remember he had a daughter. And most importantly, I needed reassurance that he wouldn't disappear again. Because I could bear anything except seeing my daughter suffer. We agreed to meet in a plaza. Just the two of us. I arrived with my heart racing, my palms sweating, and a certainty hammering in my head. I wasn't going to let her destroy what I had built. I wasn't going to let her come and go as she pleased. If she wanted to be a part of her life, she'd have to prove it to me. And first, she'd have to prove it to me. He arrived 10 minutes late. He sat down in the front with a nervous smile and began to speak. He said he had gotten lost. That he didn't know how to handle the responsibility. That he was too young. That he panicked and ran away. That he regretted it, but was ashamed to come back. That now he was ready. That he wanted to meet his daughter. That he wanted to be there. I listened to everything in silence. Every word she said sounded empty, rehearsed, as if she had memorized what she had to say. And when she finished, I took a deep breath and asked, "Where were you when I almost fainted while pregnant, working to pay the rent? Where were you in the early hours of the morning when she cried and I didn't know if I could bear it? Where were you when she was born and I went through labor alone?" He lowered his head. He had no answer. Because there was no answer that could justify it. No excuse that could erase a 1.5 years of abandonment. He was afraid, he was young, he wasn't ready. And me? Was I ready? Had I chosen to go through all of this alone? But I stayed. Because a mother doesn't have the option of disappearing when things get tough. I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't contain. Anger, so much rage I wanted to scream, get up and leave. But there was also a small part of me that wanted to believe he could change. Not for me, but for her. Because I knew what it was like to grow up without a father. I knew the pain it caused, and I didn't want that for my daughter. But there was something else that weighed more than anything else. Fear. Fear of letting him in and him disappearing again. Because if he disappeared now, after she'd gotten to know him, the damage would be so much greater. She would suffer. She would ask where he was, why he wasn't coming anymore if it was her fault. And I would have to deal with that. I would have to pick up the pieces again. Only this time the pieces would be hers. So I looked at him and made it clear. If you want to get to know her, you'll do it my way. Slowly. With rules. You're not going to come and go as you please. You're not going to promise things you can't keep. You're not going to walk into her life if you're not sure you're going to stay. Because I'm not going to let you hurt my daughter the way you hurt me. He agreed. He said he'd do everything right. But I didn't believe him. Not entirely. Because I've learned that words mean nothing. Only actions do. And he was going to have to prove to her, not me but her, that this time he was going to stay. My daughter had just turned 3 when she asked me the question that scared me the most. We were sitting on the living room floor, playing with dolls, when she looked at me with those huge eyes and said, "Mommy, why don't I have a daddy?" Froze. I felt as if the air had been ripped from my lungs. All the answers I had rehearsed for 3 years vanished. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because how do you explain to a 3-year-old that her father decided to leave? How do you tell her he didn't want to stay without blaming her? How do you make her understand it wasn't her fault without making her feel like something is missing? She stared at me, waiting for an answer. And all I could think was, I'm not ready for this. I thought I'd have more time. I thought she wouldn't realize it so soon. But she did. She realized the other children had a father and she didn't. She realized there was something different about our family. And now she wanted to know why. I took a deep breath, held her little hand and tried. "Honey, you have a father, but he doesn't live with us." No, he couldn't stay. The words came out crooked, broken, insufficient. 'Cause there was no right way to say it. No answer that wouldn't hurt. She frowned, trying to understand, and asked again, "But why? Did I do something wrong?" And right then, in that moment, my heart broke. "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing. Dad had his own problems, things he couldn't work out, and that's why he left. But that has nothing to do with you. You're perfect. Love you. And Mom will always be here with you." I hugged her tightly and tried not to cry in front of her. But inside I was devastated. Because I knew it wouldn't be the last time she'd ask me. I knew there would be other conversations, other questions, other pain. I knew that, at some point, she would blame me for not having a father present, even though it wasn't my fault. And I knew that, no matter how hard I tried to protect her, his absence would leave its mark. That night, after she fell asleep, I cried. I cried for her, for myself, for everything we had been through. I cried because I wanted a better answer, a meaningful explanation, a way to ease her pain. But I didn't have one. I only had myself, trying to be enough for both of us. Trying to fill a void that wasn't mine to fill. Today, when I look back, everything is different. I see the woman I was that day he closed the door, 6 months pregnant, thinking the world had ended. I see her sitting on the floor, scared, lost, not knowing if she would make it. And I wish I could go back in time and tell her, "You'll make it. It will hurt, it will be hard, but you will make it." My daughter is 5 years old now. She still asks questions about her father. Sometimes she asks him if he thinks about her, if he's coming back, why he doesn't come to her parties. And every time she asks, my heart aches. But today I know the answers. Today I can look her in the eyes and say, "I don't know what's going through your mind, my love. But I know what's going through mine. And I know that you're the most important thing in my life. That everything I do for you. And that, even without him, we're okay. We're happy. And the truth is, we are happy. In our own way. It's not the perfect family I dreamed of. There's no wedding photo on the wall, no Father's Day card, no fairy tale ending. But there is love. There are hugs. There is laughter. There are movie nights under the covers. There are breakfasts made with love. There are I love yous every day. And that's worth more than anything else. A few days ago, I sat down and wrote a letter to my daughter. For her to read when she grew up. In that letter I told her everything. I told her about the day she left, about the fear, the exhaustion, the nights I cried in secret. But I also told her about the first time she smiled, the day she said, "Mama," about every small victory we achieved together. And I ended by saying, "You weren't the mistake. You were the right decision. You were the reason. You were the strength I didn't know I had. The pain hasn't gone away. Still here. But it no longer defines me. It's not all that I am." Today, when I watch my daughter sleep, when I see her play, laugh, grow strong and healthy, I know it was all worth it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every bill paid with difficulty, every time I thought about giving up but didn't. It was all worth it. If you're listening to me now and you're going through something similar, if you've been abandoned, if you're raising a child alone, if you're afraid you won't be able to cope, I want you to know, you will. Not because it's easy, but because you have no choice. And in the midst of it all, you'll discover a strength you never even knew existed. And one day, when your child looks at you and asks, "Why don't I have a father?" you'll be able to answer. It won't be perfect, but it will be real. And it will be enough. If this story touched you, if you identified with it, give it a like. Comment below and share your story, because there are many single mothers who need to know they're not alone. Subscribe to the channel to follow more real stories like this one. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Sometimes we save another Mother's Day without even realizing it. Thank you for joining me this far.